to Digital Asset Report. I'm Kavita Gupta.
And I'm Vince Molinari. We're broadcasting today from New York City, and today we're going to talk about blockchain, payment systems, and the continent of Africa embracing technology.
Vince, it is so exciting. Fintech, like the whole financial tech space in Africa, has been at the forefront for more than a decade than the rest of the world. They've created M-Pesa all the way back in 2006 and 7. Like think about peer-to-peer micro-lending service or micro-payment service, and the terminology didn't exist. And from there to actually now becoming one of the biggest players in the cryptocurrency on payments, with minings, gold minings being associated on blockchain, to companies like BitPesa being used for remittances, and now M-Pesa has been heard or has been rumored to start using Bitcoin. When is US coming and joining them?
Well, it's so ironic, and I think people will find surprising, Kavita, this is the US catching up with the continent of Africa. Right? What was going on with BitPesa and other technology evolutions and the adoption of digital and embracing on the continent of Africa, the US is years behind. So as this is all new and fresh conversation in many parts of the world, especially the US, we're playing catch up to what's happened 5 and 10 years ago.
More than a decade. I remember when I was in Africa looking at this, the whole movement of fintech, like what Pada is doing. Now companies like Visa and MasterCard are going to Africa to find the next generation solution and then trying to bring them back. Where do you see, I feel like maybe before the USDC comes officially, do you see Kenya or Nigeria launching their cryptocurrency?
Well, absolutely. I do believe that we're going to see the African continent in many ways, and I'm not sure whether it's Kenya, Nigeria, where in the continent it's going to happen. But I think the move to a digital currency is likely going to be led from the continent. And I think, again, we're going to look at changes in global remittance, settlement of trade that's going to really be transformative when we look at central bank digital currencies, stable coins, that integration, and that adoption is well underway.
Yeah. Africa is the place to watch. One of the biggest regulated Bitcoin mining rigs, to Cash App going first and exploring how to use Bitcoin for payment system in Africa, to companies like Paga and M-Pesa, changing the whole dynamic, bringing hundreds of millions of dollars investments from international firm. My money is on Africa.
Well, and I'm only going to add to that slightly, Kavita, when the rest of the globe begins to realize the power and strength of the continent, with nearly 50% of its population is youth, the levels of education, the technology innovation. So I am super excited about the continued innovation and leadership that's going to be coming out of the continent.
Let's take you to Kenya, where our Fintech TV's host, Irene Kivia, can tell you more about digital asset space in the region.
Thank you so much, Vince and Kavita. My name is Irene Kiwia from Nairobi, Kenya. We are so glad you could join us. Africa's growing diaspora is jumping on the cryptocurrency bandwagon for affordable remittance, and we're seeing Bitcoin being used as the medium of exchange. To give us more on this story is our correspondent, Usha Jose.
Indeed, Irene, financial technology in Africa is growing. And speaking of growth, today we get to speak to the founder of the first company in the world to connect Bitcoin to mobile money. I am talking about BitPesa, and here to help break this down further is Elizabeth Rosiello. Now, BitPesa is a cryptocurrency-powered foreign exchange and payment platform for frontier markets. Founded in 2013, BitPesa was the first company in the world to connect Bitcoin to mobile money, as well as trade Bitcoin into African currencies. Operating in 10 markets across Africa and Europe, BitPesa is now a market maker in every major African currency and facilitates payments into G20 currencies directly. We're very excited to have you. Thank you so much for making time for us.
Thanks for having me here. It's been a long history here in Kenya with this company, and I'm just so happy to see the circle coming full round on public opinion.
All right, Elizabeth, and to start us off, we do know that the cryptocurrency journey has been quite the eventful one. We've seen cryptocurrency go from skepticism all the way to endorsement. But in terms of the continent, Africa, how would you rate Africa in terms of embracing cryptocurrency?
Well, Africa and the 55 markets inside of it are no different from the rest of the world. And what we've seen globally is digital adoption increase dramatically over the past 7 years. When we first started the company in 2013 and approached businesses to use our product online, a lot of the treasurers would say that they weren't comfortable making an online transaction and certainly not using a mobile app. And just 3, 4 years later, we saw one of the big four do a survey and sentiment had changed dramatically, over 75% more positive to using these online digital transactions. So I think what we've seen in the last 7 years is a shift in sentiment, accepting and understanding that this is technology here to stay. This is the future. And nobody goes into a bank branch anymore, not for an individual transaction, which we saw with M-Pesa, and no longer for corporate transactions. I remember standing in the corporate banking hall of Barclays, Kenya, for hours, spending much of my life waiting to buy dollars or waiting to try to buy euro and eventually trying to buy naira, Nigerian naira with that. And it,
Right.
the time wasted, the transaction, the friction, and that's just no longer a reality. And I think it's been very exciting to see not only cryptocurrency, but the blockchain technology as a whole globally become something that is no longer a revolutionary, it's accepted and even part of the status quo.
All right, and being technology that is here to stay, as you've mentioned, I think it should try to cater for as much of the population as possible. Now, the specific segment that I'm interested in would be the unbanked. Now, we know that in Africa alone, over 350 million adults are actually unbanked. And so my question would be, what is BitPesa doing, or rather, what is BitPesa's strategy to reach out to this demographic?
We're looking to level the playing field. We're looking to bring in new competition. And that's scary for the incumbents, whether it's a government or whether it's a corporate that's an incumbent, scared of anything that's going to change the status quo. But we're here to change it for the better. We have a beautiful team full of very smart, hardworking, that moral people who are very valued and think about their customers. We're not a bunch of scary people. So I think it's, fintechs now are brightest talent, and we're here to build products that the consumer wants. And we're here to build products to make life better and to make costs lower. People are fed up paying 9% for a transaction. They're
Right.
fed up with their bank wires and their transfers being lost for 2, 3 weeks. They're fed up with not being able to send a transaction across the continent from Nigeria to Kenya. It's ridiculous that you can't pay an invoice from Nigeria to South Africa. And what does that mean for the unbanked? We'll trickle that down. Nobody actually ends up serving those markets because you don't have any kind of businesses thriving. You have very, very big government projects, and you might have some micro businesses, but there's a missing middle in these African markets. And that's what we're looking to serve. The B2B customers, the corporates that are digital marketing agencies, their oil and gas supply chain, their car supply chain, their pharmaceutical supply chain, all of the big industries. As soon as you go down the supply chain, who's looking out for that supplier in Kampala? Who's looking out for that supplier in Mombasa who, has a mid-sized business trying to work with the big guys, but can't pay its invoices to South Africa, can't pay to Europe? That's ignored by the big banks. These customers have been forgotten, and we're here to serve them. And we have passed 20 million revenue last year. And I know there were some comments made by the Kenyan government originally that we're not a real business. We're a $20 million revenue business a year, and we employ a lot of Kenyans and a lot of Nigerians and Senegalese, and we have great job prospects and training. We pay our taxes. We're a real business that thinks about our real clients, and we're here to stay. And there's a lot of other businesses like ours. And it's interesting to see that the old model of the typical old bank run by a certain type of man or older man with older people in it, you know what I'm talking about, is not the future. The future is looking forward, using technology and digital financial services.
All right, and speaking about being passionate about this, fighting for this and waiting it out, we do know that a lot of blockchain and crypto startups have found tremendous markets in Africa. Now, this being the unprecedented COVID times, they have had to change their operation, and this has, of course, affected them. But what I would like to know is, what effect has this had on the industry?
All the CEOs that I know in this industry have tripled, quadrupled their business because the old-fashioned companies, a lot of the old-fashioned banks weren't ready to work from home. They weren't ready to have their processes digitized. You know, maybe they have a mobile app that they bought from another company, but it wasn't really part of the corporate culture. And what do I mean by that? Maybe they had a third-party provider with a product, but their own employees, their own people didn't know how it worked, didn't know how to use it. So when they went to work from home, they didn't have process procedures, risk controls, and operations to be able to really run a business digitally. And that's where the younger companies with these digital models, who are what we call digital native, really started to succeed.
Thank you so much. It's been quite the engaging session, very insightful, and we now have a clear picture of cryptocurrency in Africa. So thank you so much for your time.
Okay, great. Have a great day.
Indeed, and with that, it is back to you, Irene.
Coming up next, what impact does blockchain solutions have on institutional capital markets? This and much more after the break. Welcome back to fintech.tv. Moving on, we're joining Kavita Gupta from New York City, where she'll tell us about current US market trends.
Hi, my name is Kavita Gupta, and I'm very excited today. We have someone very special, Andrew Keys, with us. Everyone in Ethereum and blockchain ecosystem knows Andrew. Andrew has been one of the earliest adopters of Bitcoin. Ethereum has pretty much built up the Ethereum ecosystem, has been a co-founder of Consensus. Now, as a founder, runs Dharma Capital as CEO. And also, he just recently launched Liquid Stake to support Ethereum 2.0. Hi, Andrew. How are you doing?
Hi, Kavita. It's great to see you.
Same here. What part of the world are you joining us from?
I'm joining you from the lovely island of Puerto Rico.
Oh, that's like a crypto country, island, city of the world, right?
It's the Hong Kong of tomorrow.
Very well said. So amazing, amazing news. ETH 2.0 is finally launched. Are you excited?
I'm very excited, thankful, relieved, and really believe that this is the future of the internet. There's been 6 years of research that went into this. Many of it was blue sky research, and then the Ethereum Foundation that's focused on scalability and privacy of the Ethereum mainnet really dialed in and executed. And while it took a little bit longer than we expected, it is working perfectly at this point. And I believe that what this will serve is a substrate for the digitization of the global economy.
Okay. So this is exciting, Andrew. Now we have ETH 2.0. So let's take a step back. Most of the viewers already know pretty much what Ethereum is, but let's do a quick. So how do you describe Ethereum, and then how do you describe ETH 2.0?
Sure. Ethereum is a protocol for 3 main concepts. First is the digitization of all of our assets: stocks, bonds, insurance policies, medical prescriptions, rights to a song, will all be natively digital. And secondarily, we're going to embed those in digital agreements. Rather than a Microsoft Word document, our contracts will be computer code that simply says if then else. And we will embed those digital tokens that represent assets in these digital agreements. And basically that creates new types of living contracts where you could have an employment contract that could get paid by the minute, as an example. And I believe what this will do will foster economic growth to society.
I know, Andrew, you have really busy next 2 to 3 weeks. Thank you so much for taking time out and update us for all the things. Thank you so much, Andrew.
Thank you, Kavita.
Globally, the financial sector is undergoing profound changes brought about by technological innovations, new customer behavior, and change in regulation. Here in Africa, this presents a unique opportunity for universal access to finance. Our correspondent in South Africa, Nyasha, has a story on the intersection of blockchain and fintech. Nyasha, what's happening down there?
Well, thank you so much, Irene. Here in South Africa, the fintech industry is flourishing, and it has been underpinned by a very sophisticated and supportive ecosystem. We have AI, machine learning, and data analytics, which are fundamentally altering the way that we're using information. With the emergence of fintech startups here in South Africa and challenger banks, the South African financial services sector is undergoing rapid change. And today I'm going to be speaking to somebody who's going to help us to understand what that landscape is currently looking like, and talking into the subject of the intersection that is existing between blockchain and fintech. With this subject matter is a very fine gentleman whose name is Parish Daya. Parish is the Chief Executive Officer of Fraxium and Azusa, and he is also the CEO and founder of Dark Wall Ventures. Parish, you're busy, and thank you for coming on to the show this afternoon, and a very big welcome to you.
Great to be on the show. Thanks, Nyasha.
So we're going to be discussing today the intersection between fintech and blockchain technologies in Africa. And my first question is, what's your prediction for the next 5 years? What are we expecting to see in Africa?
Yeah, sure. As you know, we've seen a challenging 2020 with COVID, absolutely decimating industries such as the tourism industry, airline industries, food and beverage industries. But one of the upsides and the inherent consequence of COVID is actually this forcible push into the digital world. Now you see everyone using digital technology, using their smartphone, interfacing with banking environments through digital channels, and we definitely see this to progress exponentially over the next 5 years. Now, 4R technologies usually constitute of technologies such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain, cryptocurrencies, drone technology as well, and we really see the exponential growth of these in Africa over the next 5 years. Now, as you know, Africa actually has 60% of the population is under 25 right now. So over the next decade, we're actually going to see the largest youth working population in Africa. So we need to start taking advantage of these 4R technologies to build value proposition in businesses that can enhance our average citizens' lives.
And so talk to us about the intersection between blockchain and fintech, which is the title of our interview this afternoon, and any other technologies that you want to highlight for us on the show this afternoon.
Yeah, it's a great space to be in at the moment. We've seen this wave of fintech over the past couple of years, try to take over the incumbent organizations like the big financial institutions, the tier one investment banks, and the commercial banks itself. So we've seen a lot of technologies coming out, such as banking as a service and neo and challenger banks that are purely focusing on value propositions to the end user clients. So that's their real focus right now, and especially when we talk about regulations such as PSD2 and open API economies, this is really fueling the digital economy within fintech itself. Now, blockchain is an underlying technology, but it gives the rise to actually fuel the actual fintech environment. So the advantages of blockchain really to bring in network effects, immutability, transparency around financial transactions, and we have really seen massive growth in the blockchain space within the finance technology and within the financial domain itself.
So globally, we have seen economies collapse, yet some sectors, particularly the innovative medicine and communication platforms, are growing into $1 trillion. What are some of the other emerging trends that have brought about this shift?
Look, I think, primarily when we start looking at Africa, I think that agri-tech or agriculture tech is really taking off at the moment. If you look at the actual statistics within Africa, 70% of revenue, 70% of jobs are actually being driven by farming and agriculture kind of space within Africa itself. And this is one of the biggest spaces that we need to actually focus on. So we're having a look at technologies that are utilizing satellite imagery, drone technology to identify trends within crops, trends within weather, and then that then entails inference into the entire value chain within the agriculture sector. But right now, I think that there's a very big global focus around RegTech, what we call RegTech, regulatory technology, in terms of innovative solutions for solutions such as know your client, anti-money laundering, counter financing of terrorism, and regulatory compliance around policies and procedures.
So, as a continent, what are the opportunities that Africa has to look at, and what do they need to do to fast track, some of these opportunities that are emerging to position our continent as a fintech and blockchain economy?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. If we look at the Western world and where we're going with fintech, a lot of the services are, looking at neo and challenger banks, as I was talking about earlier. And those are typically, a large population of the banked population in the Western world. Now, what we need to focus on in Africa is the nuances and the caveats that we have within emerging economies. And we see we see a lot of synergies across, Africa, South America, Southeast Asia, and a lot of the emerging economies. So, trying to translate a lot of the Western solutions into emerging solutions are typically not going to work. So, for example, as I mentioned, Western population has a large banked population, whereas Africa has a very large unbanked population, or underserved or underbanked population. So we really need to have a look at, do we facilitate this through digital banking? And how do we actually facilitate that? Because normal incumbent organizations are not looking at the unbanked population right now. So we need to solve for the value proposition. We need to solve for the problems that we see on the African continent, which are very, very specific to emerging economies.
So you brought up the topic of digital assets, and how do you see this playing a part in the whole revolutionizing of the financial industry, especially for Africa?
Excellent question. I think that digital assets is an exponential growth. Now, when we talk about digital assets, Nyasha, we tend to use the word tokenization. Now, the word tokenization really means one of two things: either the digitization of traditional financial instruments that we see today, such as equity, bonds, venture capital, etc., that is represented as a token on a blockchain network. And secondly, we can actually have a look at how do we natively issue a digital asset itself. So rather than having a bridge between the current financial world, we start issuing this natively on a blockchain as a token representation.
Well, that's all the time that we had, Paresh. Thank you so much for coming and shedding light on the matter and giving us insights on the landscape of blockchain and fintech in South Africa. And for me, Nyasha Grace, all the way in Johannesburg, South Africa, it's thank you and Sarai Shakanaka. Back to you, Irene.
That's awesome, Nyasha. Thank you so much. The development opportunity that lies in the southern region is definitely something to look forward to. And that, dear viewers, brings us to the end of the program today. I have been your host, Irene Kiwia. Till next time, kwaheri.